Hi everyone, this is just a quick video taking you through the reading and writing elements of the functional skills exam. Now this video has been designed for anyone that is studying any aspects of either level 1, level 2 or even the ESOL element of the functional skills qualification. We're going to look at the idea of fast food and takeaways, as that is something that comes up now and again, and if you actually look at one of the mock papers officially provided by the exam board, this is one that they use for the practice themselves as well. So the first thing we're going to think about is the different forms of writing that you might face when you have to do the writing exam. So all I want you to do is to have a look at the different forms of writing and think about which ones are you familiar with. Now hopefully in your normal English lessons you would have covered these, but if not, it's important to think about which ones do you know and which ones do you need to go away and spend more time revising. So you have a letter, a blog, an article, a leaflet, a review, a report and an email. These are all the key forms of writing that you might have to look at when you're actually doing your writing element. So it's really important that you understand how these are laid out and how these are presented and why the different forms are important to know. The ones that we're going to focus on today are going to be a review, and we're also going to have a look at an article to help focus on our reading element of the qualification. So if you're unsure about any of the other elements, then please do check out our other videos. We have some fantastic ones looking at things like letters and emails and things like that. So you'll definitely find more things to help you on this page. What is a review and what features do you need to include? So quite often a review will come up in the writing element of your functional skills assessment, and if it does, don't worry, because a review is very simply a formal assessment of something with the intention of insisting change if necessary. So this is where you're going to give your own views, your own opinions on something you've either watched, read or experienced. A lot of the time it will be things about places you may have visited, or your favourite food, or even your favourite TV show. These are the typical things that you might have to do when you're doing your practice assessments in your normal lessons. So what kind of features do you need to include? Well, the features for a review are quite straightforward really. So you need to make sure that you're focusing on the strengths and the weaknesses of whatever it is that you're reviewing. Remember, the people who are reading this are reading it because they need someone to help them make up their mind. Should they watch this show? Should they go to this place? You're there to help them kind of come together and think about what they need to really consider in order to make their decision. Use evidence to support your ideas, so actually have solid reasons behind why you think something would change or why you think something is particularly good and why others should get involved with it. Draw a conclusion, so sum it up. So say who it will be useful for, who is the kind of target market for this TV show or something else like that, who is the audience and what kind of purpose is intended for it. It's no good saying that everyone's going to love this TV show or everyone's going to love this movie. If it's something that is specifically directed at teenagers or young people, then it doesn't necessarily mean that older people are going to enjoy it. So you need to make sure that you're aware of who the audience is and the kind of things that they're going to actually want to get out of this experience. Give your personal opinion with confidence and authority. So don't just say, oh, the TV show was all right or it was okay. We want a bit more confidence. We want you to really try to either sell it or really put us off actually going through with this and experiencing what you've already experienced. They're looking at you in almost an authoritative manner, and they're looking at you to use your expertise and your knowledge to give them your informed opinion. Reading practice. Read through the extract and attempt the questions that follow. So you can see there that we have a headline. Now a headline is typically what we'd get with an article, so that's the first one that we're going to get. When you're thinking about the different organisational features that we attribute to the different forms of writing, an article would definitely have things like a headline. It will of course have paragraphs like every other form of writing you'd have expected to produce, and it also includes subheadings as well. So I'm just going to read through this. We're then going to then progress and use this information in order to test our ability with our reading skills. So it's important that when we go through it, that you take your time, you read the information very carefully, and remember that you can pause the video and go backwards and forwards if you want to check the answers with everything else that have come up so far. So it says then, bad food and bad health caused by a global crisis has caused many Britons to radically abuse their health. In 2020, the world was caught in a global crisis as the coronavirus changed our lives forever. The crisis had brought about lockdowns, illness from the virus, and caused many of us to abuse our health. While we recover from the impact this has had on our lives, it is important that we reflect, learn from the pandemic, and see what changes need to be made in our day-to-day lives. Delivery to your door. As a nation, Britain loves to indulge in the weekend takeaway treat. We all love to reward ourselves with delicious food that tantalise our senses and leave us feeling happy and content. Companies such as Deliveroo and Just Eat have made things easier than ever. This was a saviour for many of us during lockdowns. However, has this impacted our way of life in a negative way? So if you'd like to pause the video here and go through it in a bit more detail, please feel free to do so. I'm now going to go ahead and take a look at the questions. Reading practice. Answer the questions below based on the text we have just read. So now what we're going to do, we're going to think about everything we've just read in the previous article, and we're going to see if we can apply that information to the key questions that are about to come up. So the first one says, look at text A and identify the two companies that have made getting a takeaway easier. Number 2, look at the line, we all love to reward ourselves with delicious food. Replace the word delicious with another suitable adjective so that the sentence still makes sense. Now this is a very common question to get in the functional skills exam, and you are allowed to use a dictionary so that you can look up some other suitable words to replace it. Number 3. Identify the deforest technique that has been used in the line. Has this impacted our way of life in a negative way? Number 4. Takeaways are easy for people to access as they deliver right to your house. Identify the organisational feature that gives you this information. And number 5, our last one. Look at text A. Select a quotation that suggests takeaways are bad for our health. Now, if you're looking at these questions and you're a little bit unsure about what we mean by things like deforest techniques or organisational features, then we do have a bit more information regarding this in our other videos as well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and reveal the answers. If you'd like to pause the video here to take your time and go through it, please feel free to do so. Class feedback. Check your answers against the ones below. So hopefully you would have been able to answer the questions and use the article to kind of figure out the correct response for each one. Number 1. So the takeaways that have made things easier are Deliveroo and Just Eat. Answers may include but are not limited to amazing, wonderful and mouth-watering. So this is about thinking about what is the best adjective to replace the actual one within the sentence. So make sure that you're thinking about the synonyms or using your dictionary or thesaurus to help look these up as well. Number 3, the rhetorical question was used in the quotation that we just looked at. Number 4, the organisational feature was actually a subheading, and the subheading was delivery to your door. Number 5, answers may include but not limited to. And you notice that I've actually used this sentence for number 2 as well. And the reason why I've done that is because this is how it would actually appear in the mark scheme. And what it means is that there might be multiple different answers, and it's just saying that there are many that are available. So even if you have one here that hasn't been included, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the wrong one. It just means that here are a few as a sample. So for example, the one we've used here is bad food and health caused by a global crisis has caused many Britons to radically abuse their health. Now, if you've used a different quotation, that's fine. You just have to make sure that it's directly answering the question that it's asked you to focus on. Now what we're going to do is move on and take a look at the writing element of the exam. So look at the exam question and attempt the challenges that follow. Task 1. Information. Many people have a favourite place where they buy takeaway food. Sandwiches, pizza, fish and chips, curry, stir fry or something else. Write a review of your favourite place to buy takeaway food. So that's the scenario. Normally you'll be given a little bit extra information before it really gives you the bulk of the question and really tells you what you need to include in your writing. So for the writing task, what we need to do is write a review for your community website of your favourite place to buy takeaway food. In your review you should. Now what we're about to see is a number of different bullet points to help us focus on what to actually include in the main content or the main body of our writing. So the first one is then, say where the place is and how often you use it. Now the problem that you might have with this is maybe you're not a great lover of takeaways, but that's absolutely fine. What you need to do in this circumstance is be creative, think outside of the box, and maybe you don't like takeaways, but be creative and make it up. Describe the food, the staff and the service. Explain why you like the place. And you should aim to write about 200 to 250 words, and that is fairly common for most of the writing assessments that you get in the functional skills qualification. When faced with a question like this, it's important that you take your time, you annotate it, so you draw on it, you underline some of the key words, and you make sure that you're aware of the main things that you need to focus on before you start planning your response. For this question, you're awarded 21 marks. Okay, so if you're studying something like level 1 functional skills, you'll know that there are two main writing tasks, but today we're just going to focus on this one. Now, if you'd like to spend a bit more time familiarising yourself, please feel free to do so. We're now going to go ahead and talk about how to approach this question. Use the success criteria to help write your own review. So whenever you're planning your review, it's really good to come back and just make sure you're focusing on the right things that you really need to include in this review to get the most marks possible. So your success criteria is going to be really important in this regard. The first thing I'd say to focus on is making sure that when you give information about the place that you're reviewing, that it is in a clear and concise manner. The way to make sure you're doing this is just to ensure that each point has its own separate paragraph and that you're not trying to cram too much information into the one space. If you've got a different point to make, then move on to another paragraph, but make sure the point you're making has been fully developed first. If you don't do this, it's going to make it seem a little bit clumsy and a little bit like you're just working really fast to get it done. You're not really thinking about what you need to write and what you need to produce. Demonstrate an understanding of the DeForest techniques. Again, these are the ones that we've talked about many times now in our other videos, so if you're not too sure, please do go back and revisit them there. Use a range of punctuation accurately. So they'd expect you to use things like full stops, commas, exclamation marks, fairly basic forms of punctuation. If you can think of any other form of punctuation to help improve your mark, then that is a really good habit to get into and will really help you when you progress onto level 2 and even GCSE English as well. Show an awareness of appropriate word choice to express opinions. So if you're writing a review and it's quite a positive review, then clearly you're going to want the people who are reading this review to visit that takeaway or to order from that takeaway. So we're going to use the kind of words that are going to draw them in. They're going to want them to feel compelled that they must go to this place and they must make an order there. Spell most words correctly. Now spellings are very important of English all the way up to GCSE as well, so it's really important that you are looking back over your work, you're reviewing, and you're just double checking any spelling or grammatical errors. You will kind of be allowed one or two mistakes, but if you constantly make persistent mistakes and quite basic mistakes, then the examiner will really mark you down for that. So just go back and review it and make sure that you're correcting any errors that might come up. If you're struggling to start, we've got an example coming up that will help you to begin your own writing. Write an example, read the review and attempt the questions that follow. So what we're going to look at now is just an example one that you can use if you're still struggling to think about how to put a review together. The first thing to notice is even before we've looked at the review is that it's including some of the features that you typically expect in a review. You can see there on the picture there, it's got 5 stars and saying that it would recommend. So whenever you are writing a review, we'd normally expect someone to give a star rating or an overall rating as well. So takeaway review. One of the most enjoyable, mouth-watering experiences I've had this year is when myself and my family ordered from a fantastic restaurant called the Smokehouse. The takeaway is open from 5 o'clock to 12 o'clock every day and serves some of the best Indian food I've ever tasted. Not a big fan of spices? No problem. Their menu has something for everyone. I guarantee that if you order from the Smokehouse, you will never be disappointed. All of my family gave this restaurant 5 stars. So what I'd like to think about is think back to the success criteria that we went through a moment ago and just try to identify anything that might be positive or negative about the response. When you actually come to write your own review, if you want to use any elements of this to actually structure your own response or maybe steal some of the ideas, that's absolutely fine. At this point, we really just want to get into the habit of understanding how a review is put together and the kind of words and techniques that we need to use to make it sound really engaging for the reader. Class feedback. Check your answers against the examiner's feedback. So you can see here we've got the same takeaway review that we've just looked at, and now what we've got is an actual examiner has read the example, and they're going to give us a bit of feedback and suggest how this might be improved and what has worked well. So first thing then, what went well, which is indicated there by www. So the candidate has used some appropriate vocabulary. So if we actually take a minute and look back at the response, you can see there that there are a number of words that have been used to create quite a positive sense. You've got words here like mouth-watering. So that's really an effective way to describe food. It is saying that it's something that as soon as you smell it or see it, you automatically start wanting to eat it and enjoy it. So it's a very appropriate word to use there. They've got other ones as well. It's actually using superlatives as well, superlative adjectives there, when it says it is the best Indian food I've ever tasted. So it is thinking very carefully about the kind of language that's been used there. Okay, so that's definitely good to see. Next one then. The response gives some information about the restaurant. Now, this might sound like quite a positive thing to say, but there's actually a clue in the word here of some. Now, some implies that yes, they might have given us a little bit of information regarding the actual restaurant, but they have kind of lacked a little bit as well. Okay, so what we really want is a range of information, which is going to be a bit better. And when you think about the actual information about the restaurant, the only thing we're really given is the name, which is called the Smokehouse, and also the times in which it is open. Now, common sense would tell you that when it says 5 o'clock until 12 o'clock, we would probably say that that's 5 o'clock in the afternoon until 12 o'clock at night. But again, it hasn't been indicated in the response, so it hasn't said whether it's AM or PM. It's very unlikely that they open up at 5 o'clock in the morning until lunchtime, but it hasn't been fully explained, so it'd probably lose a few marks there as well. There are some examples of persuasive techniques. Okay, so if we have a look through it, there are some very interesting adjectives there, and they're really thinking about trying to create a good atmosphere and a positive impression of this place. We even have a rhetorical question in the line where it says, not a big fan of spices, and then no problem. This is actually a really good technique to do as well. So not only are you posing a rhetorical question to the audience, a question that you don't expect them to answer, but you're also coming up with the answer yourselves. Of course, not everyone is going to love every single type of cuisine or type of food that we might talk about. So it's a good idea to think about, what would it offer other people? Now it says it has something for everyone, but it doesn't really go into any detail there. So even though this is just essentially a snapshot of a review, hopefully you should be able to see this and think about the type of things that you could add to it or maybe expand in more detail as well. So EBI, which stands for even better if. So in order to improve, this is what the examiner is focused on. So the candidate needs to give more information about the takeaway. So what meals do they do? They've said that this is really enjoyable. They've said it's a fantastic restaurant, which is great, but you haven't told me what meals they actually do. If you're really passionate about something, I'd at least expect you to tell me what is your favourite meal. We also have no idea about how much it costs. Now, if anyone has brought a takeaway, you will know that they do vary quite a bit in both the price that they cost, but also the quality as well. So you could have went in a bit more detail with that as well. They should have used a range of deforest techniques. So they should have thought more carefully about not just including the rhetorical question, but also think about using some of the other ones that we've learned in past lessons as well. Write in paragraphs for clarity. So even though this is just a small bit, or potentially it's even the start of the candidate's work, we would like to see them writing in very clear paragraphs. It is a review, so it would be a good idea for them to break down key elements as well and use subheadings to tell us about the different elements of the actual takeaway. So if you do want to use this as part of your own response, you're more than welcome to, take any parts that you think work well and change anything that you think needs to be improved. And use a range of punctuation for effect and accuracy. When you're writing your response, it's really important just to think about the kind of words that we're using to help get a really effective message across to our audience. So all I want you to do is pause the video now, have a look at the key words and try to match them up to the key definitions. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start matching them up now. So the first word is mesmerizing. So mesmerizing, what it means is that it's something that captures your complete attention. So something that you just can't stop thinking about. You kind of get a little bit obsessed with it as well. The next one, delicious. If you're writing about a review and you're going to say some very positive things, this is absolutely a good word to use. It's also a word that you need to be quite careful with when you're spelling it, because it does use multiple letters of I as well, so it does get a little bit confusing for some people to spell. So delicious then, this is something that is highly pleasant to taste. And the final one, tantalizing, is of course something that excites your senses and you desire to eat it. Okay, so all very good positive kind of adjectives to help describe food in quite a positive way. When you go on to do your review, you don't have to just talk about the positive things, you can also talk about the pros and the cons. That's absolutely fine, and in fact that actually might open you up to think about some more ideas and actually get you to use a few different techniques as well. So when you come to do your review, just try and stretch and challenge yourself and use all of those words if you can. Look at the exam question and attempt the challenges that follow. So here we have it again. So it's the same one that we looked at before. We have the same information from task 1. So many people have a favourite place where they buy takeaway food, sandwiches, pizza, fish and chips, curry, stir fry or something else. So it does really give you quite a wide range of things to focus on your writing. So it does open it up to any choice that you want to make. Write a review for your favourite place to buy takeaway food. And actually, if we look at the question again, it says about your favourite place. So it's going to be a review that's going to be quite positive as well. That being said, sometimes even our favourite places do let us down. So maybe you do include a few elements that they could maybe include, or maybe some dishes or meals to avoid as well. So the main writing task then. Write a review for your community website of your favourite place to buy takeaway food. In your review you should, and the bullet points are always going to be really important when we come to write a response, because that's going to be the main thing that's going to help us to know what we need to focus on. So say where the place is and how often you use it. Describe the food, staff and the service, and explain why you like this place. Now this all kind of comes into the 5 W's as well. If you're not too sure what I mean by that, please do check out our video that does go into more details about the 5 W's and how you can use it in your writing. You should aim to write about 200 to 250 words, and if you're not too sure how much this is, you don't really need to agonize yourself about counting all the words. It's just an approximation. So if you go a little bit over, a little bit under, that's fine, but you should think that it's going to be no more than a full page, right? So it's not asking you to write loads and loads on this. Just keep it nice and short, keep it concise, and make sure that you're including all the techniques that were discussed in this video. And again, it's worth 21 marks. So have a think that if the question is worth 21 marks, try and bear that in mind and think how long should it be based on the amount of marks that are available. If you're struggling to start, remember to use the ideas in the previous example to help get you started. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using those to inspire yourself or to change some of my ideas and apply them to a few of your own. If you need any additional support or help, the new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, please feel free to like and subscribe, leave us a comment, and I'll try to get back to you or create a video for you that will help you in the area that you specifically need help or support with. If you like this channel, you could also check out our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Thanks a lot for listening, guys, and the best of luck with all your revision and your learning in the future. Thank you.